Excuse me. Hi everyone, Elizabeth here. So my phone ran out of storage in my last video, so I'm going to do a third part to kind of get over this chicken stuff and then move on. I just don't like videos that kind of cut off right then and there. So the last two videos, and this is actually very interesting just for the future of moving forward, is that animals and humans are a lot alike. Yes, we are on a microscopic level, very, very different. I once heard a doctor speak that humans and cows have a similar intestinal tract line, which is why we can handle higher plant-based foods, and cows are plant-based or vegetarians, vegans, whatever you want to label them. And, animals like cats have a different intestinal line, which their intestinal tract is made for eating meat, and cats are carnivores. So this information is kind of a good setting stone for the future of some understanding in your own life, but in the world. So when we are talking about malnutrition, we are talking about two extreme ends of the spectrum. You have like anorexia, and then you have obesity. Obesity has a lot of energy dense food, but they are just missing a lot of vital nutrients and minerals and substances to kind of help them prevent disease, prevent infertility. So if you start looking at industrial farming from cows and chickens, you know that they've been pumped up with growth hormones. That growth hormone has been seeped into the milk and the cheese, and this is why girls are getting their periods at 9 years old these days and becoming adults, because they have all this not human growth hormone, they just have all these hormones pumped in. However, probably from the growth hormones, these cows and chickens of today are super fat, but they're also fed a really horrible diet, probably not even one that's close to their natural method of eating through industrial feed. So they're probably malnutritioned on some sort of level. And this goes into why I kind of brought up the whole issue in East Palestine, because I feel like a lot of humans and animals, farm animals, especially out in that area, are going to be hit with kind of this double whammy. If you have a scientific brain that asks questions and critically thinks and thinks about hypothesis, if you have people who have not changed their food feed for a long period of time, and all of a sudden their chickens stopped producing eggs, but these farmers are claiming that once they gave the chickens food scraps or table scraps, they started producing eggs, even during this off-season winter where chickens produce less eggs than they do during the summertime. So that gives you a little bit of an insight to having a scientific mind that it must be from the feed. So I brought up the East Palestine problem because when you have vinyl chloride in groundwater and within the air, I personally would like to see some research studies or statistics over the next few months, the next year or 2 years, to see how animals and humans, especially from a fertility standpoint, have been affected in that vicinity and region. So if this groundwater, if this vinyl chloride was steeped into the groundwater from the Ohio River and will flow into the Mississippi, the air was blown a little northeast and then southwest. It was blown in all different directions. That probably most of Ohio and Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, all of that area is probably going to be pretty screwed. It'll eventually probably go east and down south. I would like to see what will be the future results, especially for the female species, let's put it that way. So the Illinois Department of Public Health, they have a resource page which is called Cancer in Illinois, and they have a page on vinyl chloride in groundwater. I don't think this, it doesn't say when this has been published, but it looks like it's been there for a while. So what is vinyl chloride? Vinyl chloride is a colorless gas that has a mild sweet odor. It is used to make polyvinyl chloride or PVC plastic products. Vinyl chloride can enter the air, soil, and groundwater following improper disposal of chemical waste. We can all know that there has been an improper disposal of that chemical. It probably was some form of sabotage. So it says, how can I be exposed to vinyl chloride? So drinking contaminated water can expose you to vinyl chloride. However, the most common way people are exposed is through breathing contaminated air. If your water supply is contaminated, showering, bathing, cooking, or laundering with the water can release vinyl chloride into the air where you can breathe it in. Vinyl chloride is not easily absorbed by the skin. So we are affected by two major things, the air and the water. And what is interesting is that maybe because this was dumped directly into the water supply, it seems like these animals, like the fish and the frogs and the foxes, were kind of dead on impact. I don't know if anybody specifically died in Ohio. I'm sure a lot of that information would be covered up, but it is very interesting that humans just didn't kind of drop dead. So it makes me wonder, like, is the human body that resilient, or maybe the animal kingdom world is a little bit more clean because they're eating stuff from nature for the most part. I mean, we've contributed to, there's a bunch of aluminum and metal and crap in fish because the water is so polluted. But it's just interesting. So I see, so it says breathing very high levels of vinyl chloride over several years thought to cause liver damage, kidney damage, nerve damage, and immune disorders. Pregnant women may have an increase of miscarriage and birth defects when exposed to very high levels of vinyl chloride in the air. These high levels would not be expected in a home. It is not known whether breathing or drinking contaminated low levels of vinyl chloride over several years will have the same effect. So what we need to know, when you have the body's pH system, it's always generally in the middle. I believe the truth is always in the middle. So finding this middle of the path road of truth and living, your body is constantly trying to find homeostasis. So when you are in constantly a more acidic state, that is where disease grows. It's where cancer grows in that acidic state. So if you already have, and if your animal feed is already contaminated, living an unhealthy lifestyle, predominantly through fake or cheapened food, you will have an acceleration, a higher chance of developing a disease or something serious like cancer, due to the fact that you're already unhealthy and you're living in an acidic state and you're putting in a bunch of toxic chemicals on the body or in the system, which is not your fault. It's not the chicken or animal feed's fault, but it will rapidly increase your risk of a lot of problems. So when you're looking at finding that pH balance, that obviously comes through living a healthy lifestyle, but it is also the mind and the gut have they're very much interconnected through the enteric nervous system. And a lot of times what you see is that people who have a really unhealthy gut, predominantly you see this with highly overweight and obese individuals, their microgut biome is off. A lot of people think because everything is gone in your stomach that this is where everything happens in your body. When in reality, the stomach digests a lot of the food and breaks down the food with all the acid, the stomach acid, and then it pushes it through the intestinal wall and the intestinal line, which is predominantly where a lot of your nutrients and vitamins are assimilated. So you definitely want to have good colon health, good gut health, so your intestinal tract and wall will work properly. We have a lot of problems with things like Crohn's disease today, which is where the intestinal wall has kind of these breaks in it. So those type of individuals really have to watch what they eat so this inflammation isn't flaring up the gut. So in the last video, I kind of talked about the role of the chickens and their microbiota. But to just reiterate that The gastrointestinal tract of chickens harbors a diverse and complex microbiota that plays a vital role in digestion and absorption of nutrients, immune system development, and pathogen exclusion. So the health of the gut of a chicken is based on several factors, which includes their environment, feed, and the GI microbiota. The symbiotic interactions between host and microbe is fundamental to poultry health and production. The diversity of the chicken GI microbiota is largely influenced by the age of the birds, location of the digestion tract, and their diet. So this is in, I linked it in the last video, I'll link it again down below. So it's the chicken gut microbiota importance and detection technology. This is a 2018 study, I think. Yeah, to the October 2018. So if people depend on chickens for their food supply, we can understand that there's been something tampered with, either a decrease in nutrients, maybe an increase of, some more processed food, or maybe a little bit of toxic preservative chemical that has kind of affected these things. So if the environment and food highly affects the microgut biome, people and animals in the farms in those areas where this massive gas explosion happened from the train derailments are going to have, I'm just going to say, they're probably just going to have some problems. They probably will have problems. It's like the system will be so toxic that it can't produce anything because it's predominantly in that acidic state. So the feed, the environment, I guess you could say some form of climate problems have hurt some things. So this specific study was in regards to specifically chickens. So when the gut biome is off, that's called dysbiosis. I talked about it in that last video. Factors that affect the gut biome and lead to dysbiosis is environmental stressors, nutritional imbalances, dietary changes, microtoxins, poor management, enzymatic dysfunction, and host genetics. So once again, the double whammy: bad food, and specifically for chickens in Ohio and Pennsylvania, probably out there, probably a lot of toxic chemicals. This other research study is the effects of gut biomes on nutrient absorption and energy regulation. This is published through the NIH. And this one is from 2012. So malnutrition may manifest as either obesity or undernutrition. Accumulating evidence suggests that the gut microbiome plays an important role in the harvest, storage, and expenditure of energy obtained from the diet. The composition of the gut microbiota has been shown to be different between lean and obese humans and mice. However, the specific roles that individual gut microbes play in energy harvest remain uncertain. The gut microbiota may influence the development of conditions characterized by chronic low-level inflammation, such as obesity, through systematic exposure of bacterial lipopolysaccharide derived from the gut biome. So malnutrition can either be identified as inadequate or excess consumption of dietary substances, or let's just say an increase or a massive decrease of caloric intake. Let me see. So in developed nations, obesity has been predominantly an undernutrition problem. And that has changed because of energy-dense foods that have been available. So I do believe that this probably has affected farm-raised animal as well. Like I mentioned in the former video, my cats that went on this prescription cat food, well, actually I don't even know if I mentioned it. My cat that went on this prescription cat food, they've been on it for like 10 years. My one cat died last year, but they blew up from it. And I asked all these vets, like, why is this happening? And I didn't get a clear answer from any of them until my holistic vet said it's just all carbohydrates. So all of these carbohydrates are just making these animals bigger, more obese. So when you have higher rates of obesity, that's where disease can increase, but it's also that the gut biome starts getting off in these animals as well. So humans and animals is predominantly the same. I wanted to, so accumulating evidence suggests the gut microbiota also plays an important role in the harvest, storage, and expenditure of energy obtained from the diet. The preponderance of evidence demonstrates that germ-free mice are protected against obesity, and the transfer of gut microbes from conventionally raised animals to germ-free animals results in dramatic increases in body fat content and insulin resistance. The composition of the gut microbiota has been shown to differ between lean and obese humans and mice. Oh, did I just read that? I'm sorry if I did. There's one other thing, because I don't want these videos to be too long. One thing that is really important to know is that you are what you eat. And so diet is of the most important determinants of microbial diversity within the gut. A recent study comparing the gut microbiome of rural children in Burkina Faso with children in Italy showed that the bacteroidetes, I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm sorry, were far more abundant in the microbiome of African children, and that the specific types that were increased were well suited to harvest energy from their plant-rich diets. These findings raise the possibility that microbiomes vary geographically with their hosts, in part because they are adapted to local diets. Other dietary factors that have occurred over the past few decades that have likely affected the human gut microbiome included the differences in overall energy intake and relative proportions of the different macronutrients and micronutrients in the diet, as well as the differences in food modification and preparation. There was a study done on mice that I wanted to talk about. Let me see. Well, this is kind of interesting because the specific concentration and type of bacteria within the gastrointestinal tract are influenced by microhabitat variation through the gut, involving factors such as pH, oxygen content, and exposure to bile, pancreatic secretions, and nutrients. So if you are constantly in that lower pH diet, which is your standard American diet, and let's just say the standard American feed, it's probably going to have an effect on your gut. When your gut is not healthy, you are not going to absorb and assimilate nutrients that will be needed for the overall health and well-being, and that includes fertility and reproduction. There was a good one. I'll link this below because there was a reference to another study that was done with mice, and it was interesting, but this is really long. It's like 7 pages, so I'm trying to scroll through this and not make it too much. Maybe to end, to better define our nutrition status, and understanding of our microbial differences and their origins is necessary. In this review, the role of the microbiota in energy harvest and fat storage will be explored, as will differences in the microbiota in obesity and undernutrition. Finally, potential mechanisms for modifying so they're pretty much, that was just a precursor to what is to come, which is another like 2 pages of reading. So I hope this kind of helps understand, because, like I said, if you have people who haven't changed their feed and all of a sudden oh, we gave them some, you know, kale scraps or whatever from the table, and or, you know, some tomatoes, it is evidently clear that something has been altered, and this behavioral pattern has been going on for a long period of time. I've filmed already a bunch of different videos, but maybe what I'll do is start talking about some of the health stuff, because if you have not learned about anything over the last 2 years between your health and finances, it's really time to start taking it seriously. All right, thank you all for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Hope you have a healthy and happy day and a healthy gut, and see you next time. Bye-bye.